At the end of the day, we're here to make sure that your client are happy and that people that use your space are even more excited. That's what that people first process is about. It's really diving in early. It's understanding who our user is going to be and how do we make the biggest impact for them. Personally, I don't care if you don't know why you're having a good time, but we know that design can impact that, and that's pretty exciting.
Can you talk a little bit about the culture that you guys have built on there or what you're trying to maintain?
Yeah. Culture is one of those things. It's who you are when nobody's looking. For us, that's what's really important.
You're listening to the NEI Pioneer Podcast. This podcast is all about telling the authentic stories of the people in our region. Today, we have a close partner of ours on the show, Adam James, who is the CEO of Design Collaborative. Design Collaborative is a multidisciplined architecture firm that is based in our region. We've personally worked closely with their team as they beautifully redesigned our NEI office. As a firm, they pride themselves in using their knowledge and skills to serve others by creating people-first places. Along with being CEO, Adam is also a partner and senior architect who has over 15 years of experience in the industry. He shares an inside look into the work culture at Design Collaborative, the passion that they have, and his journey to becoming CEO. If you're interested to learn more about DC and their work, be sure to check out the description below. But for now, let's jump into the episode.
Adam, welcome to the show.
Good morning.
And I think you're probably one of our first 3 celebrities since you were on the cover of Business People. And it's a perfect picture because it looks exactly like you, minus the mustache.
30 seconds later, we're already embarrassing me into this. So.
No, it's going to get worse. So, listen, I got to tell you, there's a bunch of things that we're going to cover today, as always. And you have been such a great partner to us. So I want to really start by saying thank you, because how many times have you saved my butt, would you guess?
We don't have to embarrass you already either.
You can.
No, it's fine. We love to help you guys. What you do matters to our region, and that's a big deal of what DC is about. So,
well, obviously, leadership is very strong down there, and it has been for a long time. I want to talk a little bit about, start with your beginnings. And one of the things, Callie and Hannah, who are behind the cameras right now, always pull the master sheets for me. And one of the things that is always interesting to me is what got people involved into their career trajectory.
Sure.
But you had an interesting story about your friend's dad.
Yeah.
Would you mind starting with that?
Yeah, absolutely. So from a small town in LaGrange, it's an hour north of here. So architecture wasn't a huge thing. But, when you did get those exposure, I had a friend's dad who did a lot of residential architecture on the lakes up there. And you would see his product at the end of the day and his designs, and his craft was just amazing. It was just elevated, right, to what you normally would see from a house. You could tell there was extra detail, and it just kind of fascinated with me. And I'd go to my buddy's house and watch him draw everything by hand. It's very similar to what Ron Dick does in our office. The talent that they have to do all that by hand and then color and render it. It was fascinating. So it got me involved early. And I've always loved to build things, with my hands and be part of construction. So he did both. He designed it and he built it. So it was always fun to see his designs come to life. And that, really helped me start to realize there's something there that's pretty cool. That at the end of the day, you can see your product when it's all done.
You guys run the gamut as far as capabilities go. And I was wondering if your background was more of art or more of science.
Yeah, I would say for me, I was always more passionate about the art side.
Okay.
But it's interesting how important the science is in our industry, right? How things actually go together. So I would always kind of lean more towards the art side, the more creative side, the design side. But, without knowing how it goes together and understanding that, it's, you can only do so much, really.
That's the scholastic case study of tension. We always had that in advertising. It was always the creative side against the tech. That's a constant struggle in advertising. So I'm wondering how much, especially with all the capabilities, would you mind talking about all the capabilities that you guys have at Design Concepts?
Yeah, so, for us at DC, we're 90 strong now, so I got to continue to remind myself that we're in two offices. We're down in Charlotte as well. But
by the way, how many people are in the Charlotte office?
We have 8 down there now.
Okay.
After, we've been there officially probably 3 years, so, we're getting closer to that 4-year mark, and we've got 8 up there today. So it's performed well. We're excited for that opportunity. But, back to DC a little bit is, 33 years ago when Ron, Pat, and Terry started, it was immediately a multidisciplinary firm, meaning we have architecture, we have engineering, mechanical, electrical, plumbing, and then we have interior design. So the whole idea is to keep as much as you can of that process in-house, working beside people that will, be part of it. Some people farm out the engineering side, and, it's not a collaborative experience. And obviously it's in our name. So it's really important for us that we have that opportunity. And frankly, it makes our engineers better. It makes our architects and interior designers better because they can work beside engineers that have to be part of the process. I mean, buildings are complicated. They're hard.
Yeah.
They're challenging.
Well, especially with the verticals that you guys are involved with, I would imagine, particularly the financial stuff.
So, we do, our core markets, if you will, education. So both private, higher ed, and then K-12. We have a healthcare studio, and then we have a workplace and financial studio. And the financial one was one I've been involved in a lot. It's a little niche market that we've been a part of. But, the reality is we can do anything. I mean, even when I say people will call us, do you do houses? We really don't. But, for certain clients, we absolutely will. But, that's what's exciting for us is that we have some expertise in areas, but we can also leverage the team's strength and experience to do pretty much any project.
See, the thing that surprises me, and again, please, I think architecture and design versus coming from advertising agencies, there's a lot of differences there. But the one thing that we always did, so when I was at Ogilvy or DDB or any of the big guns, you have a core functionality that we do, right? So we do the commercials or whatever, but we source most of that work. So the directors aren't on staff. Some of the producers and the production guys are on staff, but when it comes to the sound engineers and all that, it doesn't make sense for an advertising agency to do that. Now, would it be nice to have them next to me? Yeah, it's hard to float that boat and keep it profitable though.
Sure.
So I'm wondering how you guys do that, because obviously every RFP you guys go after or whatever isn't going to be the same. It's not cookie cutter. They're going to want this piece from you and not this piece. Is it tough to keep that going with all those capabilities inside?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's challenges obviously with any of that, and the reality is some projects maybe we're not best suited for, so we do have to evaluate that. But the strength that we can provide having in-house is that we should in every aspect be more effective and efficient because I can go next door to that person, right? And our principals are actively involved in all these projects, so now you got a wealth of knowledge, with a team that has those experiences of over 30, 40 years in some instances, and we can still make that something, whether it's profitable or efficient for the right project. So it is being smart. It's leveraging what our strengths are there, and then making sure at the end of the day that the product is something that we're proud of to deliver.
And I think Design Collaborative, I think you guys have been in business since '92. Is that right?
Yep.
Okay. And is it when you think about that of the years going by, and how long have you been there?
I've been there 11 years now.
11 years?
Yep.
And you took over as CEO last year?
This is officially this year.
Officially this
Yeah.
year. Okay. We all knew it was coming. So, okay.
Yep.
Now that you guys have your legs under you after, being around that long, is it how much of the business is RFP response versus hunt?
Both, absolutely. I mean, we
Okay.
have to continue to hunt, on some of that. And, obviously the best clients are ones that come back to you and you don't have to do an RFP, but we absolutely do RFPs, especially in areas that we're trying to get into new markets. Some of it's required, because it's a government or a school, they require it, from their board perspective. So we'll gladly compete on it. A lot of that is a story that you can tell and how your team's going to respond. So, I from a percentage standpoint, I should know this probably better off the top of my head, but I'd have to imagine, I see us respond anywhere from 30 to 40 RFPs throughout the year, RFQs, and maybe more, some less. Some we just decline to do because we're not well positioned. So, and there's a lot of effort that go into them, and we have a marketing team that spends a lot of energy to do that, and so by the time you spend that energy and then at the end of the day you don't get the project, it's the question, should you have been investing in something else a little bit more?
Yeah.
Right? So
I always wonder, again, I have very little to do with architecture, but I know that for the big pitches, when we pitched Walmart and IBM and blah, 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 I mean, that takes years off your life. I don't know what it's like for you guys. I mean, spec and schematic and design and usability and all that, there's probably some similarities there. How long does it typically, what is the pitch cycle usually like for you guys?
Well, I mean, getting a new client can be years, right? I mean, it's a lot of effort. That usually starts with our business development team, who's out there doing the cold calling and trying to just get our name in there. And then, oftentimes it starts with a smaller project to say, we'll do this. We don't need a 60,000 square foot, $20 million project.
I mean, there's probably a lot less of those anyway, right?
Well, I mean, people trust us with millions of dollars, and that at the end of the day, we're going to deliver a result that makes them better, whether that's, more efficient and effective as a hospital or a more, engaging workplace, whatever the case might be. So they're trusting you with that. So a lot of times you got to build that trust early on. And that's like, hey, we'll do a quick renovation for you, or a restroom, whatever it is. And I've always appreciated about DC is you kind of check your ego a little bit to say, at the end of the day, we're here to make sure that you're, as a client, are happy, excited, and that people that use your space are even more excited, right? And get that experience. Because, I mean, you're coming from a creative background, and you know how important an experience can be. And that's what we try to capture, a lot of if it's, again, workplace or Promenade Park, it doesn't matter. We want you engaged in that space and loving what you're doing. Personally, I don't care if you don't know why you're having a good time, but we know that design can impact that, and that's pretty exciting.
It's funny that you said that too, because I'm wondering, how does it go when you guys are pitching it in? How does it go from flat rendering? I mean, do you guys have to do 3D walkthroughs and all that? Is that where things have gone to?
Depends on the client. I mean, anymore it's a pretty common thing. We design everything in 3D. It's really everything's modeled in 3D, so it's not very difficult to take it and to transition it into a video or a walkthrough. And the technology continues to evolve that now we can do that on the fly with a client beside us and let them see the space, right? And that's really engaging for them too, to see it in 3D, because it's hard looking at a 2D print and trying to figure out, is that big enough? Is this right?
Well, you show a flow chart to somebody with a web design, and wait a minute, where are the deep links? Is there anchors in there? I mean, I get it. It's interesting too, because when I was looking at your education, what made you went from Ball State to Clemson?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Can you talk about why you chose Ball State first?
I mean, it was a state school, right? They have a great reputation. They have a great program.
There's a lot of people around here that went to Ball.
Yeah,
so,
there's a lot of our staff that go there. So, growing up in a small town that, like Muncie for a hot minute, was a big city, something different, right? And it was still close to family, which was important. Okay. And the school was, it was a really, really good school. So I was glad to get accepted and be able to join the program. What took me to Clemson was kind of that same mentality. It's like, all right.
Had you narrowed it down to a handful of schools?
Yeah, I applied to, I think, Florida International, Oregon. So just varied schools throughout the country. And the whole idea was like, I wanted to get out of Indiana for a little bit. I had a travel bug and was ready to see what else is out there. Clemson kind of won my heart because, one, it's a tremendously beautiful campus and area, but it was a really small class. I mean, our class was like 14 people. And it was all dedicated, in your master's is just dedicated to architecture. So
I've heard you're still a fan. So I think everybody in this building
I've developed that reputation. So it's easier when they're winning national championships and football and stuff. So it's good.
Yeah,
especially on my Notre Dame fans that bother me all the time about it.
Well, okay. So can you talk a little bit about Design Collaborative as far as the breakdown goes? Because what is the big ticket discipline that you guys have? What is the main focus that you guys make most of your income off of?
Well, it changes, throughout the years. Right now, and lately it's been education. Education's probably our most mature market that we're in, and specifically private higher education has been a market that we've always been able to rely on. But we've done a pretty good job, I would say, actually a great job, and Nathan Woods leads that studio for us, and Kevin Scully before, who's now in Charlotte, has led that. But just developed so much expertise and knowledge, and we do a lot of work in this region with it. So that's usually our biggest and best as it relates to projects that we get, and we're thankful for that because there's a lot of great clients, around here that we get to work with. And Nathan will be quick to tell you, like, we've impacted over 2 million students, and like that's really important, including you two that are in here because we work on Huntington, right? So it's you kind of step back for a second, realize that's what it's about for us. Is like, how do we make an impact in this world? And hopefully we're designing these facilities to, in this case, education-wise, right, to make them better, to make them more engaged in what they're doing, and have that, and give a spot for the educators to thrive in. So that's our biggest one. But our healthcare team continues to grow, and it's a not a niche, but like a really strong market for us too. That we're thankful that we do work here in the region as well as over in Ohio now. And then, workplace and financial. Workplace has been strong, but the whole COVID thing changed a lot, right? Like how workplaces are today. So, there's.
I'm assuming that they're building much less collective workspaces. I mean, you see the WeWork,
right? But they're changing, right? And so, but the way you work today is different, and that's where the expertise is really important for. I would argue for an employer to know about, and that's the expertise that we can help bring. Like, it's a completely different dynamic than it was 5 years ago, that you have hybrid work. Now, how do you do that? You need these other rooms to have Zoom rooms or whatever the case might be. So, and a lot of people want their employees back in because they feel like they can be more engaged. So we try to help with that. Say, here's, a workplace today can't just be a cubicle of 6x6 and a really dull ceiling and terrible lighting, right? Again, you go back to that experience is people want to be in a space. It better be better than their home because that's what you're asking them to do.
How do you guys interweave the technology into the design?
Yeah, it's an upfront discussion early on because you've got to understand, and that's part of our process is to ask a lot of questions early. I mean, we want to be the most curious people in the room from day one, and that's understanding what do you really want in here, and then making sure that you're challenging them along the way. So again, if you go back to that we have electrical engineers in our office, and if they're aware of what the owner's needs are from day one, they're going to be thinking about where's this TV go? How do we make sure that it's flexible for 10 years and when we're probably working in a different way again, right? And we might not be using Zoom anymore. We might be using a different technology. So how do we make sure you as a client have something that's adaptable, flexible for you in the future? And that's usually a challenge, but we can start thinking about it early on, and then it comes down to a decision with the owner. Do you want to pay for that now, or can we be smart about adding, let's say, additional conduits or whatever the case might be, to give you as much flexibility for the future? So because it is changing. I mean, you look around every room you're in, like you said. Like,
oh yeah,
we've got cameras now. Are we doing a Zoom or Teams or like?
The NEI Pioneer Podcast seems like the perfect place to plug our Pioneer Awards event. If you don't know, each year we host an awards event to celebrate our region's pioneers. Just like our podcast, this event aims to showcase and share the authentic stories of the people in this region. Now, this is a community-involved event. We had open nominations in the fall, and now we have our category finalists. This spring, we will have community voting, which is where you can get involved to vote on our category winners. Then we'll be followed by the event where we will announce the 2025 Pioneer of the Year. If you're in the Northeast Indiana region, we'll encourage you to go to pioneerstartshere.com to learn more about this event and how you can get involved. Again, that's pioneerstartshere.com. Now, let's get back into the podcast.
But you're talking about the leadership change, and how were you approached that the transition was going to come and you were going to take over as CEO? Were you surprised?
Well, if you know Pat, our previous CEO, he's a planner, right? So,
yeah, he is. He's a great guy.
It started, I have to imagine, in his head 10 years ago that he's like, all right, we got to start thinking about how we're going to transition to this. And at that point, DC was, I was just starting at DC, and it was probably 40 people. So he was very intentional with the process to get that, how are we going to do this? And they were very adamant, the owners, and I say they because I am now an owner, but at that time I wasn't, but making sure it was internal, like who really makes sense here, who's going to help carry this torch. And, some way I wasn't obviously involved with everything, but about 5 years ago, we brought in an executive coach and someone to help us figure out how do we get this transition to happen. We brought an outside source in with Kelly Bird. So it was helpful to have him to guide this. And really we started with a group of 10, 12 people, and we would just meet with him and we would try to figure out. And, part of that was, is this something you want to do? And that was everybody in the room, or is it? And he was also watching, who will probably be best suited for this. Because, honestly, a lot of people self-select out. I don't do what I went to school for, obviously, as much as I used to, right? I don't design anymore, projects, right? Yeah. And so for some people, that was like, I don't want to give that up. That's what I love to do, right? So some people self-selected out. And, at the end of the day, Mike, my cohort as COO, Mike Neeser, and I were not like the last one standing, if you will, but I think, we all kind of recognize that this is a good next step for us. So that was 4 years ago that we made that decision. A lot of last year was us letting Pat take a back seat in many ways, but making sure our new team that we formed was gelling, that we got to see and feel some real life issues and examples. And he was there to support us and guide us, so now this year it's like, all right, we're running, right. And we're moving. So,
in my entire career, only one time can I remember that this individual, I won't say his name, great guy, he took a promotion to creative director and realized that he hated it and he wanted to go back to being an art director.
Yeah.
Like that's rare that happens. How much of the new gig has been a surprise to you?
Most days, right? But it's not a bad thing. No, yeah, no. But my favorite thing to do, and whether you go back and look at your Gallup strengths or any of that kind of stuff, is like I love one, creating teams that are like really excited about what they're doing and keeping people passionate about what we get to do. Like fundamentally, I love that. And so now I get to do that with not just a team, which I used to lead our workplace team, but now I'm doing it with, the entire office and our Charlotte office. So there's some of that that's different, right? Yes, I have foregone a lot of, not doing architecture as much as I am, but I still find that creative outlet because I need to.
Okay.
It's something for me that I still love
Yeah.
and passionate about. I'm just not in the drawing it as much as I was. So I can still find that, but for me it was just making more of an opportunity to say, okay, now we can take this to the next. Pat always had the analogy of the rocket ship, right? This is stage 2 of the rocket ship, and for us that's exactly how we're viewing it as, like, hey, we've done, and thankful for everything that group that started this company did, and now we're excited to say, what's next? How do we continue to grow this and have fun with it, right?
Well, has your transition or your trajectory or your escalation or whatever we would call it, has that affected at all the work-life balance? Because I got to tell you, I think you've got 2 daughters, right? 2 little girls?
I got a boy and a girl.
You got
My
a boy
daughter's an oldest, yep.
So now you're CEO, and the expectations are that much higher, and you probably have to travel more, I would assume. Has the transition affected the life-work balance at all?
Yeah, I mean, it's been something I continue to have to monitor and keep track of. And honestly, with my partners, they remind me, step out sometimes, like you need a break and stuff. So it's a challenge, right? I don't have to travel. Actually, surprisingly, I was traveling more with doing financial work because we were doing projects across much of the country. So I was out a little bit more. I'm usually in Charlotte once a month for a couple days to make sure that they're doing. More of the commitment for me personally now is, after hour events and, going to your guys' events or GFWs and
May
just being
8th,
present.
You're going to be there.
Of course.
Yeah.
Would never miss it.
All right.
Do you need something printed out now or later? So.
Hey, I will call on that favor later. We'll keep that between us.
So it is. It is something because, as my kids grow, it's amazing how fast they're 5 and 4 already, right? And I don't want to miss those opportunities. So but thankfully I have those chances to step out. My daughter tomorrow has a field trip downtown, right? So I can pop out for a couple hours. I can go do that with her, and I know she'll be smiling and excited, right? So like those are things I don't want to give up. In many
Until
ways.
she becomes a teenager.
Yeah, at some point she'll
she'll
be tired of me. There's no doubt. So
well, okay. So what about just because you mentioned more national work and things like that, have you? And I would, maybe this is wrong of me, but I would include Ohio in our region, like as far as temperament, attitude, people, personalities. I'm wondering, have you noticed a difference at all in when you're working locally versus working, nationally? Is it a different temperament? Do you have to show more concepts? Is there a difference?
Yeah, it's a great question. I don't know if there's a huge difference with that. It often comes down to like a personnel thing, right? Are they, and thankfully a lot of clients we work with hire us because they think that we'll be part of that process to engage them and move their design forward. So I don't, we do, I think last year we did work in 19 states. And a lot of that's because we have repeat clients or a client has moved down to a different area and has brought us with them.
Sure.
So they know our process and how we do that. But, we don't, most of it's Midwest, Southeast, obviously now, but I would say we don't run into that a whole lot, thankfully. And, we can, and one of the reasons, I'm sure we're going to talk about, you mentioned Charlotte, but like one of the reasons we went there is because of that temperament. That's a very similar. Now, don't get me wrong; they're much bigger than Fort Wayne, but they have that same mentality, a very friendly business. The people there are fantastic.
Well, see,
they're
that's
great
what I was
to work
going to
with.
ask. How did you guys pick Charlotte? I mean, obviously, if I'm sure there's synergies and other synergies that you know about, but there has to be logistics and
Oh, absolutely. I mean, there's 15 reasons I can tell you, as we went to the group to say we got to go here. But fundamentally, it was because we believe in what we do, and Charlotte is a growing region, and we believe it was a great spot for us to continue to move forward. That's one, right? But the other part of that is we had some existing clients in that area, and we're very hands-on with them. We want to make sure that they had that opportunity for us to be there all the time, right? So you want to give them even more of that experience and customer service that we thrive on. So
it's funny that we rely on technology and our cell phones and everything, but that human intervention is number one.
Yes, yeah. Now we've got 8 people there that can be there in an hour or two if we really need to, in that region, right? Because we do more than just Charlotte. But before it was hop on a plane as quickly as I can to get down there. And it just wasn't convenient for them. So a lot of that was growing that relationship, with them too. And we were intentional not to go down to Indy or other areas around here. We wanted to grow a new region.
Yeah.
And Charlotte,
it feels like you guys kind of have the state covered. I mean,
we're thankful we get a lot of work in here. In Michigan, Ohio, even a little bit. And it wasn't because we were running out of space here. We just, we had some passion to grow in a new area, a new market. And we had worked with some people that said, we think you guys would do great here. So thankfully, we took a chance, and it's been incredibly successful. And I hope, obviously we've learned a lot. It was our first chance to get down there. And, one of our partners, Kevin, made a personal decision to grow the firm down there and left and uprooted himself there and has helped grow that market. And it's, really important for us that DC culture gets transitioned down, to Charlotte. And I hope this is, one location, but there should be more down the road for us. I mean, it just goes back to we believe in what we do so much.
Knowing the type of person that you are, I
should
was
ask you what that means.
I was. I should have said that in a more snarky way. That guy. No, but I think it was really interesting for me to see this volunteering board member, and I'm going to read these off.
Sure.
Salvation Army, Weather the Fort, Riley's Children's Foundation, Junior Achievement of Northern Indiana, and of course NEI.
Mm-hmm.
So it sounds like an awful lot. You're already spreading yourself thin. You're CEO. You got 2 little kids, and you're doing these board member volunteer gigs.
Yeah, I mean, some of them I've I guess grandfathered out of it, right? So it started with the Salvation Army when I was at in my previous life, different firm. So and that was great. It was just great exposure to see how you can help impact others, right? So. Once I left there and went to DC, I left that position, but I still deeply believe in their cause. But for the rest of them, there's personal connections there. So Riley, my daughter's a Riley kiddo. She spent 10 weeks when she was first born at Riley Hospital down in Indianapolis and very intensive care. So, for me personally was like, I got to find a way to get back to this organization and spread their word of what they did. Because the reality is my daughter wouldn't be here without them. And I'm incredibly thankful. And I feel indebted for them forever, frankly. So that was me finding a personal connection. So how do I help spread the word of Riley, grow their presence here in Fort Wayne, in Northeast region. So that's why I've joined that group. And, we meet quarterly, but I'm always figuring out different ways to support them. And, in JA, again, I got 2 kids, and JA does so many amazing things. And,
they do.
And especially the one in our region,
and I didn't even know it until I got here.
Yeah,
so.
I mean, and what Lena and her crew does is simply amazing. So, and for me, as my kids get ready to enter school, I want them to have the best education. That's what you want for your kids, right? So, and I just deeply believe what they're doing, and I'm glad to support what they're doing as well.
Well, I just saw you guys in the news, and we're talking about local community market things.
Mm-hmm.
A bus stop.
Mm-hmm.
And can we talk about that?
Yeah, of course,
I know
yeah.
that's very small on the scale, but I'm curious as to what the motivation was. They're making a really big deal out of it.
Yeah, and I guess we didn't realize they were going to, because for us it was finding a way to give back to the community. But I think it speaks to the power of design. I mean, what you can do, and again, a 4x8 bus shelter, but the impact.
It doesn't look like a standard bus shelter. By the
no,
way.
but of course, we took a little creative
Yeah, I see that.
flow
I thought
to
it was
it.
cool.
So, we picked up some of the elements in that region, right? So the Harvester community obviously was built around the International Harvester there. So they've got some architectural elements that we picked up and wanted to put into there. But that started a couple years ago when we met Gret, who was the Harvester community, or is the Harvester community's president. And we have a group of interns, and I always like to challenge my interns to say, help make this community better, or what we're doing, right? And as a side project, so they get the experience, architecture, engineering, whatever what they're in there for. I love to say, all right, I want you to learn more about Fort Wayne. And one way to do that is immerse them in a project in Fort Wayne. So a couple of years ago, we did Harvester. We did a master plan. Like, hey, what can we do to help bring some vibrance back to this community? And we worked with the city of Fort Wayne. We worked with the Harvester community as well. We brought in and had sessions where we would bring people in to help, with this. And one of those prizes that came out of it was the bus shelter. And obviously, they needed one there. I mean, it's a very heavily used area, and the current bus shelter that they use is literally a bench beside a church, and we're like, hey, we know people, we can make
No
this
covering
fit.
or nothing?
Nothing at this point,
Oh,
no.
wow.
And that was something that, Gret really wanted to help improve. And she had some partners with Custom Fabrication and Steel and O'Neill's, who have their office over there, that everybody wanted to find a way to do this. And and include Fort Wayne Community Schools as well. So we helped them get there, right? Say, hey, let us help design a bus shelter. The coolest part was the students at Fort Wayne Community Schools helped weld it and build it.
No way.
Yeah, custom fabrication steel here locally, gave all the material and time to build it. We obviously gave our time and designed it. It was always funny because we had to go to the zoning. I think we had to go to some zoning hearing. Like you just kind of don't realize how sometimes the steps in there. You had to get a building permit and all that funny stuff, which I know might sound crazy, but
no. I've heard horror stories in multiple states about that.
Yeah,
so I get it.
But at the end of the day, here we are. And yesterday we had the ribbon cutting for it, and Mayor Tucker was there, and it was honestly emotional because you heard stories from people talk about how her mom had, on the same spot for 35 years, took a bus to downtown Fort Wayne to work at Lincoln. And it just, you realize all of a sudden how a simple little structure, how much it can mean. And then again, I go back to the power of design, right? And how do we help the community get better? And we never wanted to press out of it. We never do. But like now that I can share that with everybody back in the office and say, just remember like how much, yes, there were struggles and all that, right? There's stuff along the way, but step back for a second, look at that difference we made in this community. It was, geez, it just fills your buckets. You're so excited.
Well, it was great because I heard it on the radio. I actually drove in today. Usually I walk.
Yeah.
I drove in today. I heard it on the radio. I got in. I saw it in the paper. I pulled up a browser. It's in there. I was like, who's their PR firm, man? Good for them.
Well, yeah.
But you can tell in those small communities, sometimes just those little touches make a big difference.
Yeah.
And I thought it was really impressive. And just to see all those people crowded around it, I didn't know that it was a group thing.
Yeah. That's how... I think in many ways, she had a vision and we wanted to help it. And the city was there to help, and Dan and his team there. And we said, hey, we can do some of this, right? We have a piece of this and we'd love to support it. And then it was finding others, right? There was Wygan Construction was a huge part of that. And Jeremy and his team over there helped build the foundations for it and get it set, right? And then you got Shoes Construction who's building the roof. And everybody just pitched in at the end of the day and donated their time and energy to help Fort Wayne get better. And that's the best part, right? Like, that's what I love.
It's interesting, too, that you guys talk a lot about designing people-first places. Mm-hmm. Would you mind talking to that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. For us, so our mission, improve people's worlds, like that's what we hang our hat up every day. And I try to rally everybody around, right? Like we get this unique opportunity to make your lives better. And we do that across all those vertical markets we talked about. But, people first places is how we do that. So like that's our design process. That's the focus that we provide to say, a lot of times we'll work with, let's say, a C-suite to define the program and the building. But at the end of the day, it's not.
But they're not on the ground.
Yeah, they're not the ones that are always there, right?
Yeah.
They're a very important piece of this. So like our process is always about figuring out, okay, well, who's going to be the end user? Who are we designing this for? And sometimes it's for, a group of office workers and employees or industrial, and sometimes it's the entire city of Fort Wayne at Promenade Park. And so to understand who you're designing for is really, really important. So at the end of the day, we can say, look, we're designing this for everybody, right? It's a very big, important thing for us. And doing that means you should bring in resources outside of it, right? We want to partner with people like AWS in some of their skill sets to make sure that our buildings are as accessible as they can be and that they're healthy, right? Like you should be in a space that makes you better at the end of the day. So that's what that people first process is about. It's really diving in early. It's understanding who our user is going to be, and then how do we make the biggest impact for them?
Everybody is going to own your brand if you don't own it. Mm-hmm. And I'm wondering, if you're saying people first, you must have constituents, you must have partners, you must have clients that are saying, well, this is what I ordered. And you have to convince them that this is a better way to do it because of usability, because of line of sight or whatever.
Sure.
Yes. Can you talk a little bit about that tension?
Yeah. Well, yeah, absolutely. Sometimes it's easier than not, right? But there are times where, I don't know if we come in with a preconceived notion of what it should be, because that's the goal, is not to. We always want to see like what the client wants to hear. But I very much view, and we do as a firm, is like, you hired us because you believe that we could be the best solution and get you the best solution at the end of the day. So part of that is we're going to challenge you, and that's why up front we want to know what your goals are, what your mission is. Like at the end of the day, what does this need to look like, and what's it need to feel like? Excuse me. And also, like at the end of the day, how it's been successful, right?
Right.
So we ask these questions before we even start drawing anything. And the whole point is, this is what you said day one. We're going to get you there, right? And there's time. At the end of the day, it's their building, their space, whatever. So we can push it, and at the end of the day say, I get it, but we don't want to do that, then, okay, you heard us, I hope, and we'll continue to push this forward.
Have you ever had to, I'm sure you thought it, but have you ever had to say, I told you so?
No. Not to their face, right? No.
Okay.
No,
I may have
of
thought
course
it.
not.
Because, I mean, again, you guys are coming in as the experts, and I would hope people would rely on that. But, everybody's got an opinion.
Yeah,
right?
and I mean, so, our marketing and Kathy, our director of business development, like expertise without ego, right? Like you got to go into it knowing that, like at the end of the day, they're going to live in this. It's their money and stuff. Our job is to help guide them to a good solution. And as part of that, you should be honest and share that with them. But at the end of the day, like if they want to make a decision, they have their reasons to do so, and we need to respect that. So we're not coming in as a starchitect and saying it's this or
Starchitect,
is that
what you called it?
Yeah, so those are all like the big famous architects, that have one names and
I always say advertise or not.
There you
Does
go.
that help?
That's very,
All right.
that's very, yeah.
Well, since we're on that subject, can you talk a little bit about the challenges in your career? So, obviously, it's multifaceted, I would assume. You've got direct reports. You've historically had people that you reported to. You've got clients. All clients aren't created equal. Can you talk a little bit about your challenges and the things that you've learned, how you've overcome those challenges? That's a broad question. I can get really specific if you want me to.
Well, I might need you to a little bit, but I mean, in general, like you're going to have challenging clients, right? But you're going to have challenging sites, and you're going to have challenging codes and all that. So like our world is just filled with challenges. And I think much of what our education about is being critical thinkers and creative thinkers about how you're going to navigate this, right? I'm specifically talking to the projects. But even within there, you have clients that have different priorities and goals and stuff too. So you have to really navigate those situations, right? So those are challenges every day. I mean, we sometimes call some of our people firefighters. They just run around trying to put fires out on stuff that has happened. No, like normally when we have any kind of conflict or issues, there's a lack of clarity, right? Like there's a lack of clarity with what the owner wanted in their building or program. There's a lack of clarity of what our team thought they heard or needed. And that just causes issues at the end of the day. So like for me, the more clear we can be on one, what we do, what their roles are, and then two, stay focused, right? Like here's where we bring the expertise. And we shouldn't be out here pretending we should be doing all this. And whatever that might be, right? I'm not even sure, but like the whole idea is to keep the team focused, keep them going on what we do really well, and make sure that they understand clearly what they're up to. And that has helped solve so many problems. And that's challenging for an organization that's 33 years old, that's evolved a ton, right? So we've had partners that have been there for that long, and staff members that have been that long. We look very different today than we did, I have to imagine, 30 years ago. Obviously, I wasn't there, but there's a lot of experience there to kind of give you some idea of like, all right, here's where we need to go, stay focused. And we no longer need everybody to do everything. We need you to do this really, really well and grow that team and grow that market. And that's what, has helped us get past a hump in some ways, is that we can have that focus and drive.
Barrett McNagny is a neighbor to us as well as a sponsor of this podcast. Barrett McNagny is a law firm that's located in downtown Fort Wayne, and they were founded in 1876. Now, I'll do some quick math for you. That's almost 150 years of experience. That's 149 years longer than this podcast has been around. Along with their experience, they also have a wide range of practice areas. They are best known for their trusted legal counsel where and when you need it. If you're interested in their services or want to learn more, be sure to check out the link in the description below. Now back to the episode.
Can you talk a little bit about the culture that you guys have built on there, or what you're trying to maintain?
Yeah, I mean, it's probably, obviously it started with the founding partners of Ron, Pat, and Terry 33 years ago. It was just something that they wanted to create a place that people love to be at. And so we've continued to evolve it and carry it on and tweak it, right? Like, again, the world's very different today than it was 33 years ago. But I mean, there's some things that we're very intentional about, and we just don't sacrifice. We start our Mondays together and hear what people did over the weekend. But the whole idea is that you start the week together and you end the week together. And philosophically, it's just like a chance to learn more about people, right? Like for me to hear a highlight from somebody that I don't get a chance to work with, because we're 90 people, is really I'm like, oh, I didn't know they had that. And I'll think of them and I can, when I see them in the hallway, we can chat about it or something. So, it's culture is one of those things that's always evolving. It's never defined. Like we've tried to define it, I'm sure, like everybody else, but you can't, right? It's who you are when nobody's looking. And
That's
I think, and for us, like that's what's really important. So for me, I'm one of 14 partners in the office that have ownership in there. And all of us have a different role and an opportunity to make our culture better for others to see and continue to bring up and grow. Because but we also have a ton of senior leaders that need to model the way, and we have a lot of young staff that need to see how we do things, and like that's where it's exciting. So, the culture is important for us. We believe, obviously the fun events that we do through the summer, we want to engage our cities in both Charlotte and Fort Wayne. So, go kayaking, on Friday. We'll do some stuff to get out and about, but it's also like how do you give back to the community? How do you do? Because that's important for us. So we have a set of core values that we live to, and for us, they're not necessarily like be good humans or whatever, right? One of our core values is have fun, and it's not necessarily about like making sure you're drinking beer on Fridays at 4:00. That's not the point of beer theory. The point for most of us.
Well, for most of us.
Some of it's about disconnecting with the staff and like, have fun with your projects too. Like these are, we talked about, they're hard and they're complex, and there's everywhere you turn, there's barriers to try to prevent it to happen.
I think no matter what you do, you got to have a passion for it.
Yeah.
Because if that's lacking, it's like you said about culture. I found that until you're in a bad culture, do you recognize a good one?
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, that's absolutely right. So I don't know if I've ever been in a place in a bad culture, if you will, but I would say that the culture at DC from places I've been and worked is like, it's energizing, right? You want to pick up off of it and say, okay, like I don't have to like read a piece of paper to know like what this company is about. You just see it. You see it in our employees, and that's the goal. Is you really see them loving what they're doing. They're having fun. They're giving back to their community. All these things that really really pride ourselves on, and it's really important.
Is there a project that you're most proud of, or that DC itself is most proud of?
Yeah. Well, I won't speak on behalf of the company, but they're it's like kids, right? They're all your favorite in some regards. They all have their unique challenges that you overcome and got to the finish line, which is really exciting. But honestly, the one I always go back to is one of my first projects at DC when I came over was Turnstone was building their addition at the Plasma Center. And one, it was a great opportunity for me to see how DC works and the culture and all that. Like I got to be just thrown into it, which is fantastic. But then you step back for a second and see what that organization does, and you're like, and we were a part of that,
That's
right?
cool.
And it was simply amazing to understand how much of an impact and how much of to our mission of improving people's worlds that project was. And so those are the ones that are always my favorite, but that one's always stuck out for me just because of the impact it's made. And the people are just fantastic. What it does for our community and brings in is
It's a hell of a
amazing.
case study.
Oh, it's
That was one of the first things that I read about you guys.
okay. Yeah, I mean so that one's always top of mind for me personally.
Is there advice that you would give to anybody in college coming up? And I don't care if they're in architecture or whatever. Good advice that you've gotten on that, or good advice that you would give?
You hit it earlier. It's about passion. Like I think that's really important, and it's hard at 18 to know what you're passionate about. But I would say never give up on trying to find out where that passion is, and then find a way to just go 100 miles an hour at it. Because that's the most important thing for me is I've stumbled, I've failed, and you're going to. But I think what you've learned from those is really important.
Yeah.
And so. It's the world's going to continue to change. In our industry, everyone's asking about AI. What's it going to do? Grads are trying to figure out was my job's going to be there. And for us, you go back to what we do. It's design spaces for humans and people. Like there's going to be a spot for us, in my opinion, for a while. It's going to look different, but for them to figure out what they really love to do and then align that with where they want to go.
You have been a part.
Yeah.
Your organization has been a part of NEI for a number of years.
Yeah.
You've been an emergency partner of mine. I see you at the events, and I'm very appreciative. I see you on the covers of magazines, and I say, that guy's got something to do with us, so I'm happy about that. But let me ask you, and I want you to be as honest as you can. Do you have any advice for NEI in the way that we're working, rock councils, whatever?
Yeah. Yeah, I think my message would be the same to you guys as is for GFW and the Lidos and everybody is let's not get complacent and let's not stop going 100 miles an hour about trying to make our region better because you guys have a huge opportunity and make a huge impact of bringing outside people right into our region, get a little glimpse of what it's like to live in Fort Wayne. And with our Charlotte office, we make sure that they get here to see Fort Wayne, and people are always like, "Oh, I didn't know this was." Yeah, so that humbleness that you have talked about with what we do, and but we've got to spread the word. We've got to continue to let people know the amazing things that are happening, and we can't settle. We can't settle on small visionary projects. We can't settle on our population growth and in solving all these things, right? These are good challenges that we have in front of us, and I'm glad that we talk about them. But like the most important thing for me and for you guys' organizations is to say, hey, we did it, because we can't. We just got to keep going.
You'll be happy to know we're into the rapid wrap up.
All right.
So this is supposed to be quick, but if you tangent, that's
no.
Imagine working with me. I tangent all the time. Okay, polar plunge or chili bowl?
Oh, polar plunge for sure.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, why?
Well, it's one, it's a great cause, with the Special Olympics, but two, there's nothing better than like motivating yourself to jump into a pond that's been frozen over and then getting out of it. We do it here in Mateo Park here in Fort Wayne, so that's enough. I don't need to go to Great Lakes.
Okay, favorite part of your job?
The new challenges every day. I mean, that's the honest truth. Is it's just something different, and the opportunity to work with people now throughout the entire office. It's great.
Okay. What is a hidden gem in Northeast Indiana that more people should know about?
Well, I told you I'm from LaGrange, right? So the lakes up there are just fantastic between, Rome City, Wolcottville, Angola. If you haven't experienced some of that and been able to get out there, you should. The trails, everything around are fantastic.
Okay. And the last question I'm going to ask you, which comes from Callie. So this is going to be a dig on me somewhere. If you could change the color of Sackett's glasses, what color would it be?
Well, of course, I'd make them orange, get on DC brand a little bit. So.
Okay. I wasn't expecting that, but I'll take it. Fine.
I'm shocked that it's not more on brand with NEI stuff.
Yeah, but you know what? They don't make, because the reason why I wear these is I'm looking at a computer screen all day and I get headaches.
It's like blue blockers or whatever.
Yeah, that's what these are.
Okay.
And you can't find them in our
that's a shame.
Seafoam blue.
Seems like an opportunity for someone.
Well, you know what? If only I knew.
You got to know some people around here. So.
Callie's over there celebrating that I actually went over this. Listen, I got to tell you, I love what you guys are doing.
Thank you.
You're a great guy, and I'm so happy that you guys are such a strong asset for us and a part of NEI. And keep doing the great work. And like I said, it's wonderful with all the things that you're doing on a personal level, and it's wonderful all the things that you guys are doing. I know you guys are all volunteering down there and doing so much for the region, and that's what we're all here for. So thank you so much for joining me. And I will be down there at 4:30. I'm going to come join you.
You have an open invite anytime, so and I appreciate that.
Everybody will recognize me. I get that in the elevator.
They're going to be like, "Oh no, what's he need?" And you're like, "Nothing. I don't need anything now." So.
You know what? I get that everywhere I go, though. Now what? Now what does Sackett want?
I mean, same. I appreciate everything you guys do in growing our region. It's great. We're excited, and it's exciting times for us, and let's keep it going.